Doing today? It's the third episode of Synergy Artcast, I believe. I'm
Woohoo!
pretty stoked. It's me, Brandon Zimmerman again, and Kevin Zeigler.
How's it going, guys?
Here in about 10, 15 minutes, I think Dylan Pierpont will be joining us for our little talk tonight. We're going to talk about the Eureka piece.
Eureka!
And just in case none of you guys know what Eureka means, because somebody tried to fight me on what it means yesterday, Eureka means a cry of joy or satisfaction when one finds or discovers something. So, kind of what this is going to be regarding to is the the piece that takes you forever, but yet is the best piece that you've done, and you learn a lot from it. So that's what I've been doing, and Dylan's actually been helping me throughout this piece that you see. This is not the piece, but
You're fucking
I
right. That's
yeah,
not the Eureka piece.
that's not the piece.
Are you sure?
I will be teasing it here in a little bit though. I don't want to show everybody yet because it's not completely done, but I am stoked. I think it'll be really cool once it's done. Um, but yeah, Kevin, you got any hellos to say?
Hello, hello. You know who I'm talking about. How you doing? Just that special one. Yeah.
What are you going to be drawing today?
Well, when you talked about Eureka pieces, the thing that came to mind immediately was the first kind of page that I felt comfortable doing digital work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I have right here. Um, I have a pitch that I worked on not too long ago. And I was just going to thumb through it, show kind of how I start a page and then work up into, you know, pencil, rough sketch, and then full inks, and how that
Cool.
kind of plays out. Yeah, because definitely when I was doing this pitch, it was the first time I was ever like, oh, that's how you can do it. So, yeah.
Rad. I think I'm just going to be doing some clone stamp little robot, kind of after what James Zabata does a lot. I I love that technique a lot. Oh, and some exciting news. I don't know if anybody uses Colorist a lot, but they did recently. I don't know when exactly, but I just saw that they finally have the Colorist 2.5, which works with CC15. There for a while we couldn't use it because it was Java, I believe, and Photoshop now uses HTML scripting for plugins and stuff. So we haven't been able to use it for a while, and God, I love it. I'll just show you what some of it does. You can have your color schemes and stuff over here. You can do sliders. It's rad. And see, I don't like the square. I like the triangle more. There's a useless point on the square um, that nobody needs, and it's that point right there. If you just took that off, and we wouldn't need it anymore. But and then it has this mixer. I don't know how the mixer works, to be completely honest, but I'll figure it out, and I'll let you know how it goes. If you guys want to actually learn a little bit more about it, just let me know, and I will totally do a little intro on it. And if you guys have any questions, feel free on the Google Hangout page. You can ask questions, and I will see them on the right side of my screen, and hopefully we can answer them for you. Yeah.
Yep.
So, how important was your Eureka piece? Like, what did it do for you?
I would say like before this piece in particular, I know it's a little different because it's like sequential work, but for this, I was kind of almost fumbling around with how to ink digitally and how to go from almost nothing to a full finalized piece. So this is the first time I was like, okay, um, you can kind of take a tight rough or take a tight, like very loose sketch, develop something that that works a little bit better and kind of like refines your ideas. And then, oh, then also, this is how you can translate it into nice sloppy inks that I normally like. Um, yeah, I was going to say, because I love brushes. I'm kind of a Luddite, or I was for a long time when it came to drawing. You know, I would buy pens and fancy drawing utensils and try those out and different methods of that. So this was kind of the first time that I was like, you know, I've looked up how digital artists do their thing in a piece, or how somebody goes and makes something digitally, but it never really worked for me. Never really seemed to make sense with how I go about doing things. But like I said, this is the piece where I was like, oh, okay, I think I can kind of mix what I have and turn it into something that would work digitally. So yeah.
So how do you work digitally? What's your hardware and everything so that people know what's going on?
Okay, well, I have a Wacom Induos Pro, a large one. I should have gotten a medium. Size is not always better. Ladies, I think you know. I'm sorry, that was a terrible comment. But yes, I have a Wacom Induos that I use. And then I have my MacBook that I pretty much use. All my art now is drawn on that. Like I'll start out with, here, I'll show you in this other page. Yeah, so like I'll start out, these are scans of like a maybe 2 inches by 3 inch kind of page layout. And then as you can see, I kind of like skewed one panel and kind of messed with another. And I take that and then I kind of draw over top of it a little bit to create, you know, a more defined page and get a little something different. Looks like these. Oh yeah, then I skewed that some more and tilted the whole thing. Added another character I liked more. See? And then from that, made that into a digital ink that I liked.
Okay, so when the color artist gets this, they'll be coloring underneath of it, and you'll be able to put it on a new layer, correct?
Basically, what I give them a TIFF file of just the black and white. So it's everything. It's basically just the black and white image, and then they're able to take that and do with what they want. A lot of times what they'll do is create like flats. They'll go in and do something like, say, so there's fire here. This whole page has fire on it. So they'll do something like this and go boom and put the inks on multiply layer. That would already be the case. But then, yeah, you take something like this. So then you kind of know the mood of your page as the colorist. And then depending on if you have somebody that's doing your flats for you, you would like go in and make him on a separate layer. You make him like a color that then you could go in and edit later, something like that. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. Just real quick, show you. And then you would like, from here, say I did all this with all the characters and pieces that I wanted separate from the background. This is kind of general because that's how I color. I know a lot of colors do it in different ways. You know, this is one of the ways. Some actually just draw or color straight onto the thing itself while using just one layer. Yeah, but like,
Yeah.
okay. So you have a little dude, and then they'd go in and maybe like they want the fire to. Whoop.
Oh, not to interrupt you. Hello, Dylan.
Hi, team. Hi, team.
What's
Carry
up?
on.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry I'm late.
Oh no, you're not late.
Coming
Hello
from the other side of the lake.
No worries. To our viewers out there who are here now and later, this is Dylan Pierpont. He is my mentor as of right now, teaching me a lot, and I think him and I and Kevin will definitely be able to give some insight on our Eureka pieces. Dylan and I talked about it a little bit while we were going over the piece that me and him have been doing.
Yes.
And I feel like that's going to be a really good conversation. So.
Yes. Yes. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, of course.
No problem. Welcome aboard.
Now,
Continue. This looks
Yeah.
exciting. We're looking at panels here.
Yeah. When Brandon told me about Eureka pieces, the one thing I landed on, since I'm a sequential guy, were these pitch pages that I did, which were actually like the first taking a thumbnail, like a small little thumbnail and pencils that I did, and scanning that, and then taking it and just going from there digitally.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I was telling him it definitely changed how I look at digital, because before I just never could find a way to make or incorporate it into what I do. I really like, brushy look, and I like a really fluid, thick line that that adds a little bit of character. And I just never could get it quite right. But when I sat down with these, I kind of just was like, you know what, fuck it, just go, see what happens. Treat it like you have a brush in your hand, and just do it like you would, and don't really worry about the consequences.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, but then he asked me how colors work, or what would happen with these pages after the colors. So I was showing him basically just a quick rundown of how colors would maybe approach it after.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like doing the solid color block in. It's weird because that was something that I was sort of taught in school as a traditional method, and the first time I'd ever used that was in a still life painting class using acrylic paint, and I always attributed it to what you're doing right now is colorists, comic book type stuff. I never considered using flat tone and flat value and flat color to block out a piece and then kind of render from there. Because comic books are what I sort of know that technique from, so it's cool. It's cool to see.
Yeah, I think it definitely can get frustrating when you're doing the minute details and things for flatting. Luckily, this is pretty simple line work, but it's always kind of fun to see. Oh boy, look at that. Mm-hmm.
That's why you can get away with such thick lines, though. It just makes everything so clean.
I think we talked about that, Dylan, when I was working on the girl's face.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I could totally do color really well. And you were like, we'll take out those lines. And I was like, but I don't want to. And line can really help everything. It's nice. And Kevin, I told you this before. You have a really good a good line weight to your stuff. This is some of your older stuff. But.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is the first thing I did digital, comics book wise. But I'm gearing up actually for another book that I'm actually gonna attempt some full digital work. So I kind of am using this as okay, what did I do in here that I liked that I really like the way I could just sit there and make this guy look like he's got some chaotic lines going, but then also get crazy little smoke lines as well.
Did you feel that when you were moving from traditional media into digital, were you able to like pick up on the tools pretty quickly and get a similar look with your digital that you were doing with your traditional?
I mean, I've been messing around with digital for a little while, but I never really attempted it with a comic book page until actually a comic I was working on very recently. I took over in like the third issue from another artist, and I noticed that he did all digital. And I kind of wanted to fit in because I was taking over halfway through, and so I kind of just tried, and it turned out it's a page. But man, if I were to like show that now, that'd be fun. In fact, all right, hold on. Might as well show all the warts. So yeah, here is my first all digital page. And like I said, so there's that. Felt pretty good about.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the first time I was like, I'm going to ink and draw and do everything digitally. And dear God, was that it wasn't a mistake because obviously like I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this was my Eureka piece. And I've colored comics before, but this was the first time I was like, I need to ink, pencil ink and color. And I was also trying to like keep to what the previous artist had kind of set up already, color-wise, and how he had a very painterly style in his coloring.
Okay.
Which I've never really been able to pull off to my liking.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Stick with more of the flat graphic approach.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's an interesting process. When you were doing this, were you doing those lines? And I should ask now, are you on a Cintiq or are you on a tablet?
I'm on a Waken, tablet.
Okay.
The Induos Pro.
Yeah. I used to have a tablet, and I realized pretty early on I'm not a fan of I don't want to say I'm not a fan of line art, but I don't enjoy like spending a lot of my time with the line art because I think a lot of my stuff I tend to just paint. Like the final piece ends up being painted, or if it's some kind of environment or matte painting, like there's a lot of photography involved. So like I try and like reduce the amount of time I spend on the line work. And I think a part of that too with digital was when I was on a tablet, like I hated doing lines on a tablet because it felt nothing like, using a pencil. I used to do pencil like all throughout high school. Like pencil was my jam. And then I got the tablet and I hated doing lines. It was just a nightmare. But I realized on a Cintiq, I think the lines are a lot more, for me anyway, they feel a lot more true to what I do on a piece of paper. It's hard. For me, it's hard to have good lines using a tablet. So that's awesome that you're able to pull a lot of that stuff off, because I have a hard time with that.
Yeah, I tried drawing on his tablet, and I don't think that I'm a terrible drawer, but it was just like I couldn't do it. Now, with that being said, I do prefer tablets over Cintiqs when I'm painting.
Okay.
I know that sounds a little weird, but I'm starting to get used to my hand being on the screen. But when I was on my Intuos, it just felt nice not to have my hand in the way of everything.
Gotcha.
That makes sense.
Gotcha. I think Raposa paints that same way. When I was back in Denver, he came out and did a demo for our Denver Illustration Salon group, and he was the same way. Like he didn't like the Cintiq. He showed up with this big old tablet and started painting. I think a lot of people were really surprised by that. Like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what?
You're killing the image.
What are you doing?
Yeah, I was going to say,
for him.
This tablet I have now is leagues above the one that I've had, or I used to have. It was the old trusty. It was just an Induos. It was like Induos 1, I guess. It was like huge and bold. Maybe that's why I got the large one, because the tablet I learned to draw on was huge, and I had the thing from like high school, and that's where I like learned how to use Photoshop. And when I say learn, I mean like I used like cloud filters and like every little filter I could find. Soft glows, the inner glows. Oh man, I was all over it.
So Dylan, do you have your Eureka piece with you?
Yeah.
Did you want to share some about that?
Sure. Let me pull that up. Have you talked about yours yet, Brandon?
I have not.
Okay. All right. So I thought about this question when you kind of explained to me what the topic was going to be, and I think like there's a lot of there can be a handful of Eureka pieces, like quote unquote, throughout an artist's career, because I think during certain stages of your like growth and beginning to learn this skill and everything, like especially early on, there's a lot of new stuff being thrown at you that you're trying to like conquer and master, and so the Eureka stage is like they tend to be really close together, and you might have a couple like early on, and then as you get older and more experienced, like I think they come fewer and further between, but when they do happen, like it's fun because you can kind of sit back and be like, oh my god, I haven't felt this way about a painting and forever. It's pretty cool. So that being said, I think the first piece that really gave me that feeling was when I was back in school, back at RimCAD. I was in art school from the fall of 2008 to the summer of 2011. And we had, here we go. I got this on my other monitor here. When I was a senior, my senior year, we finally started getting into digital art. The school was a pretty traditional-based school. Here it is right here. The school is a pretty traditional-based school, so like your first 2.5, almost 3 years, I think, were dedicated to foundations, and that's important. Like that's an important thing to learn, absolutely. But I think, especially for someone like me who is interested in like entertainment design and video games and movies and making imagery for that media, like digital was introduced fairly late in the process. I was using it a little bit when I was in high school. I think I got my tablet back in 2007, so that would have been the tail end of my junior year of high school, I think, because I graduated the spring of 2008. And so I had some experience with a tablet, but because all my classes back at school, in college, like all my classes were kind of traditionally based, so I was only really doing digital stuff on the weekends and in the evenings, like on my own time. I didn't really get an opportunity to use digital media like for my projects in school until around my senior year, end of senior year. And so this was one of those pieces, and it's funny too because this piece started digitally, and then went. I'll try and show you some of the process here. This piece started with sketches that were done digitally. So like I do, this is like where the line art comes in. Like we had Cintiqs at school, so I was enjoying the line art, and I would really dig in. I'd write all these notes to myself, like where things needed to be, and negative space, and information, and busy, and calm areas of interest, and all this stuff. So I write all these notes down, and I do all this line art, and I got really invested in doing the line art, and like it was pretty fun. Like it was cool to like sit down and like have this whole drawing kind of laid out and ready to start the painting. And my teacher at the time, Larry Kresick, like he suggested maybe instead of doing like going, even though it was a digital piece, instead of going from digital lines into digital painting, because we learned the process of you do your sketches, you do your thumbnails, then you do your clean line drawing, then you do like a value study, and then you do a color study, and then you do like the final piece, right? So as part of the process, like he said, instead of going from digital lines into digital value, why don't you do your values traditionally, use something like charcoal and graphite, and then you can use that as your reference when you do the final digital painting. And I was like, ah, you're crazy. And I did it to an extent. Let me see here. This was my charcoal. I printed the piece out on this like 11 by 17 piece of paper, printed it out, swathed like the whole thing in Vine charcoal, erased out all my highlights, and then went back in with more Vine and compressed charcoal to start doing the values. And I got this far and then got tired of it because it was taking way too long. It was taking way too long. Like, I can do this digitally, I think. Just let me do it digitally. So I got it to this stage, and then I went back into the image back in Photoshop, and I just started painting digitally instead. And I actually kind of skipped the whole value stage altogether in black and white and just went in with straight color because I figured, well, I did a lot of it value-wise with charcoal, like I can reference that and I'll just paint it the way I'd want to this way. And so that's kind of where this piece started to take shape, I think. And the reason I sort of consider this the whole, like, you know, the Eureka piece, to bring it back to the topic, was it had a lot of elements in the scene that I hadn't really like messed with before. Like, for example, it was, you know, you had to compose a figure that was interacting in kind of an intimate space. And first I should probably explain, like, the concept behind this was a cartographer. The piece, I called it like the cartographer. And the idea was that this guy was a map maker who was trying to chart the physical locations of heaven and hell. So like it was an endless and like lifelong dream and endeavor of him to like chart the physical path that would lead one to, you know, the great beyond and the afterlife and all that stuff. And so I pictured him like being in this, you know, he's in this dingy old you know, room, this like, you know, basement or whatever, and he's got books and books and scraps of parchment, and he's, you know, he's got technology, and he's got, you know, old tech with the spyglass and the compass and the scrolls, and, you know, he's got his new tech with these goggles that have weird, for no reason, like camera apertures and lenses and all this stuff. And I wanted to give it this like sort of steampunk vibe to it. And so taking a character like that and trying to like fit him into a space with all of this stuff was a big, for me, that was a really big thing to have to do, because to compose a scene up until this point, I didn't have to deal with this many elements. Like, it was usually one, maybe two figures. And so to have this figure and then put all this other crap into the scene and kind of make it look like it fit within the story, that was kind of a big change for me. And by the time it was all done, too, like dealing with color and messing with things that were like, you know, like you know, you use value and you use color and saturation in areas of focus, things that you want to like draw, you know, the viewer's attention to. And I think in that regard, I kind of failed because I think everything was really saturated, and that was something that I had a hard time learning. Like, it took me another couple years, I think, even after school, before I like finally started to get a grasp on saturation. But this piece in particular was like, it was that turning point for me. It was learning how to compose all this stuff. It was learning how to like tell a story with this character and his environment, and it was learning to like paint digitally and use color in sort of, I don't know if you want, like bold or sort of out there ways, for me anyway, because up until that point I hadn't done color this way. So there was a lot of firsts, I should say. And this piece in particular, I remember when we finished, there was a bunch of friends of mine and I that were in school, and Spectrum was coming around, like the art annual, the sci-fi fantasy art annual, and the submissions were open, and the deadline was, I think, sometime in like August. And I finished this piece up for class, I think in end of July, like end of July. So like the deadline for this whole Spectrum thing was coming up. And I had critique. I went to critique with class. I had the piece finished, and then I heard about Spectrum, and a couple people were like, "Oh, we should submit. You know, we should submit stuff." I had never opened a Spectrum book up until that point. Like, I didn't know what was in there. I didn't know the caliber of work that gets like submitted to this publication. So like, I just knew like, hey, we should submit our stuff and hope maybe we'll get in. And so the deadline comes up, and being the artist that I think we all were, like we're all working our pieces up until the last minute, even after critique, even after we had class input and all that stuff. We're trying to crank these things out. And this was also before Spectrum allowed digital submissions, so you had to mail everything in. So you had to get a print. You had to get a print that was accurate of an accurate representation of the piece that you were doing, and then you had to mail it off. So we got the prints made. I went down to the post office, I think during like my lunch, and I had to like overnight the piece because the deadline was like 2 or 3 days away. So I was like, okay, I'm going to overnight this thing. I'm going to spend the extra $20 or whatever it was to get this thing overnighted. And I was in the post office and holding my print in like the flat envelope or whatever. I got it all packaged up, and I'm next up to the counter. I give it to the lady behind the counter, and I told her, I was like, you probably get this a lot, but this is the most important piece of mail I have ever sent. This has to get to its location by tomorrow. Is there any kind of tracking or anything I can pay extra for to make sure that this gets there by tomorrow night? And she said, oh yeah, there's a tracking thing. It's included with whatever you got. I'm like, okay, thank God. Awesome. So I sent it off. Long story short, we didn't get in. Had no idea how insanely talented the people are that submit to Spectrum. But I didn't care. I was so invested in the idea, and I was so proud of the piece. And I think all my buddies, like, they had the same feelings about their work. Like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna send it off. And we didn't get in. But it was a learning experience that was like, I don't know, that stuck with me. And I think that's the thing that this piece, it has stayed with me, over the last like 4 years or so. It's like, this is the one that really turned the tables for my artistic development.
Yeah. God, dude, going to the Spectrum, if you guys don't know what Spectrum is, it's a huge fantasy and sci-fi. Well, would you say sci-fi, Dylan? There's definitely a lot of
fantasy, sci-fi, horror, or like the big tropes and of that show. Exactly.
It was. I went for the first time this past year as a junior in college, and it was amazing. Honestly, there's nothing more that you can do better for your career than like going to these conventions and meeting people. I met so many great people. It was awesome.
It's a fun time, and it was probably, I think it was another year or two after we had submitted those pieces that we actually went to the Spectrum Live, because there's the two aspects of Spectrum. There's the art annual, which is the published book that people can buy, and then there's the actual showcase, like the convention that people go to. And at the convention is where they hand out the awards. They announce all the candidates for the awards for different categories of different sections, whether it be editorial or unpublished or game art or what have you, concept art, concept design. So yeah, I don't know, it's kind of a big deal as far as the fantasy sci-fi world is concerned, and it's I don't know, it was an experience. It's
like the Grammys but for artists. It was pretty fun.
There you go.
Yeah, you'll get to meet, if you guys do end up going, you'll get to meet lots and lots of artists that are just so humble and just really good to talk to. Portfolio reviews, they have a lot of like art directors that you can talk to. It's nice. Yeah. So here is my Eureka piece. Yeah, it's all blurred out. You guys can't see any of it. But
everyone's naked.
Yeah. Dylan's been helping me out a lot with this piece, and I've put so much time into it. Kevin can be a testament to this. I haven't left. I've either been at work or in front of my Cintiq, slaving over this piece and just doing studies.
Don't say that.
God, I have.
Sound like an overlord.
No, it's good. It's honestly, I was telling Kevin earlier, it's actually made me feel like I have a good work ethic. I don't want to say that I had a bad one before, but after starting a piece like this, you really start to like just hammer some stuff out, you know. Um, just doing studies and making sure everything looks right material wise and lighting wise and composition wise, and bringing up problems with your mentor as it goes, and them teaching you, it's super helpful. So yeah, this is definitely my Eureka piece. It's
what are some of the, because I'm curious, what are some of the things that you've, like, what are some of the aspects of this process on this image that maybe you weren't as confident about, or maybe you didn't have an awareness of in your past work? Like, what name just one thing about this image, I think, that you've really like sunk your teeth into and it's like, oh shit, like I didn't know how to do this before and now I know how to do it.
it might sound weird, but I think it is getting the bigger picture part, and not focusing on too much at one time, or focus on too little at one time, and that you need to focus on the entire piece. That's something that I've slowly kind of like shot myself in the foot with, because there's some parts that you and I have talked where I had to redesign completely because it just didn't look good. If I had taken things slower, or not necessarily slower, but not spent so much time in one area and then figured the whole thing out before I started rendering, would have came out a lot faster. But yeah, I think that's number one most helpful thing so far, is like painting the pants today. It took me maybe 30 minutes after I actually figured out how to paint leather, and doing these other studies. But then again, it did take me 2 or 3 hours to actually sit there and study and take notes and research how to paint leather. But yeah, I think it's the bigger picture thing. And color. Color I've never really been good with. And just using different modes or methods of coloring really helps out a lot.
Yeah. And I think color is a pretty common pitfall for like early artists. And even people like myself, like I don't have color like mastered by any means. For me, color is still a lot of experimentation. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but having the tools and having the having sort of options as far as how to apply color is once you learn that stuff, I think it's important. And it's cool. It's cool to hear that this was that piece for you. You know, like that cartographer was a piece for me, and like Kevin's initial comic pages were for him. Like,
I think another thing with color is that a lot of people, a lot of beginning artists, obviously, don't really realize is that Photoshop is terrible with mixing colors, and that's something that I've slowly started to learn as I've been able to see color better. Is that it desaturates the hell out of your color once you start mixing. So it's always good to go back and add in those saturated colors. So
it's true. It's
yeah.
true. Digital, I think digital mixing is it's a little different from traditional. If you have the traditional know-how, like you can kind of anticipate what should happen, but digital doesn't always play nice.
Well, honestly, I feel like it's almost just Photoshop. I mean, not just Photoshop, but there's other programs out there who can handle color so much better, like Paint Tool Sci and Clip Studio. For some reason, you know, the color mixing in those programs is just awesome. You can pull color in, so if you took a blue over a red streak across, your blue will actually pick up some of that red as you go over it, but not before you went over it. It's different. And if you guys haven't tried those programs, you should totally check them out. I'm surprised a lot of more people don't use Clip Studio than what I've found, because it has a lot of tools that are really helpful. Like the perspective ruler tool is amazing. And if you guys don't know what that is, you can essentially set up a perspective grid on your composition, and then whenever you draw a line towards a certain vanishing point, it automatically snaps to that line. and it's just super easy for like just getting some basic comps down. Yeah. Kevin, what you drawing over there?
The only thing in my eyesight right now, because I don't have a dual monitor, I was gonna pull up some reference images, but instead I'm staring at your little. Brandon has a little man guy thing.
Oh, I have the anatomy figure from 3D Total.
Yep, that's what's going on over here.
I still want to get one of those things.
Dude, it's so cheap. You should totally get one.
I'm gonna have to invest at some point. I'd like to get one of those. I'd also like to get one of those écorchés, like the did Noman have one? I can't remember. It could have been Anatomy Tools. I think there's a couple of different ones floating out there on the internet, but the écorchés, like the muscle structures and everything, like those look really nice. Those look really, really nice. I'll have to pick up one of those at some point.
What exactly do they do?
So here, I'll try and show an example. Basically, it's a figure you can get, I think, either male or female. Spell that right? Oh, I kind of did. Kind of did. So, we'll say statue. A lot of the ones that I've seen, you can get a couple different people will sell them differently. So, like this one here, half the body is kind of like you sort of get the skeletal structure. And some of the underlying tendons and muscles, and the left side is the overlying muscle structure. You can also get ones that are more like this, that are kind of almost entirely muscle. There's ones that split up. One side would be skin, and the other side is muscle.
That's the one that I have, yeah.
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun.
Oh, I don't know if you know about HoloLenses. It's like Microsoft's.
Yeah, their new VR stuff.
Yeah, there's actually an app that was showcased in that actually pulls up an anatomy figure, like
really?
life size. You can like do muscle overlays. Like actually, that's
pretty cool.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
That's pretty cool. I could see that being helpful.
Oh yeah, totally. You're just sitting there drawing. You look to your left, and there's a naked dude with his muscles showing.
Is that with that app? Is it targeted at like artists or more like med students?
It was targeted towards artists and med students in the video, which is actually pretty interesting. And you can like lift the arms on the figure. You can pull up different parts of the body. Like, so say if you want a detailed view of the hand, you can do that. And it'll show you how this is more for like med students, like how the blood flows through the body and stuff like that. But yeah.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out. No, I hadn't heard of that yet.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. I can't wait. Because you can just think about being able to see engines, being able to see mechanical parts for like mech designers and stuff like that, and it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a bright future, guys. Bright future. Crystal Sully said hi.
Hi, Crystal Sully.
What's up,
Hello.
Crystal? If you guys don't know Crystal Sully, she is an amazing, amazing painter. She just got featured in Imagine FX, right, Dylan?
Yep. Yes, indeed.
Oh my gosh.
She got the featured double-page spread in Imagine FX was it last month? I don't know if it was July or August issue. I think it's July's issue.
And it's our Undead Dragon, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Or Tombkeeper.
Tombkeeper, yes. And I have a signed print. I'm so stoked to have that. Nice and framed up on my wall. It's that one right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, Crystal Sully. Got to meet her at Spectrum. If you guys have a bunch of art friends, going out to Spectrum's going to do nothing but let you get to meet them. It's a lot of fun. So, what are you painting, Dylan? Creepy.
I did some sketches. I did some sketches the other day. These guys here, and they're sort of loose ideas for characters that I'm going to be putting into my IP, my personal project.
Alright.
I don't want to say too much more about them, but they were, yeah. I figured I've been working on the story for, God, I don't know, for too long now, too long. But I'm excited because it's finally at a point where it's like I can start getting back to doing the artwork.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to sketch something out that would give me a visual for these things that I've been developing over the last few
Now
months.
that kind of looks like the creature that you had like doing the peace sign
I had a
and like
creature doing the peace sign?
or like you know how people sit down and go
The peace sign is
I don't know.
meditate.
Here, I'm gonna pull it up. The dark choir.
Okay.
It kind of looks.
Is anyone doing the peace sign in it?
Yeah, they're not the peace sign, but the like you know how you put your like middle finger and thumb together?
Uh-huh.
What is that sign called?
The mudras, like the hand positions?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's what you mean, right?
I don't know. I don't know what life is.
You're talking about this one, right?
Do I have it pulled up?
Or oh no. I know. You're talking about this one.
Yeah,
I gotcha. Different characters.
different characters.
Character.
Those are badass though. I love those.
Thanks.
God, I wish I had a print of something like that.
They're gonna get to you. They're gonna get to you. I have them laying out in the living room right now. They're signed. They need to be rolled up.
Cute.
They need to be rolled up and delivered to the post office. I promise you will.
I'm just messing with you, man.
You will get them.
No, I'm busting up over here. I can't even like breathe.
They're long overdue, but I promise you'll get them.
Oh, I'm not worried. I promise. Ooh, you're using gradient.
The gradients, yeah.
Oh my god, I love that.
Gradients are fun. We're gonna see if we'll get anything interesting out of these.
Oh, but you're not using the gradient mask, are you?
Well, it depends. Well, I'm adding the gradient tool right now just to add some color because my idea for these guys was that they were going to be sort of albino, and like gray albino. So I kind of want to see how far I can sort of push the color in that sort of color field.
Man, I'm gonna tell you what I had problem with today. Painting a black belt. Like nylon.
Nylon. Okay. So it's not fully matte. It's like somewhat reflective.
Yeah, I'll show you what had come out of it. But gosh, those colors are tricky, especially in direct sunlight. Because like you want it to look black, but you know that it's gonna be orange. Here, I'm gonna try to not let everybody see what's going on. Just gonna zoom in on the old belt. Dude, Photoshop is being slow.
You got a big file, man.
Yeah.
You got a big file.
But so I painted the belt first. And then with the intent of using a multiply texture layer over top of it. And so when you zoom out, it actually looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with how it comes out so far. So
I think you could probably still push highlights just a little further on certain areas. But you're right. It's kind of a tricky material because it's not quite specular and reflective enough to denote high contrast highlight and shadow, but it's not quite matte enough to just be kind of flat black with a really soft gradient. Like it's sort of in a in-between zone.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, everybody, that I can't let you see this yet.
There's I gotta be a tease. I gotta be a tease.
I am a tease. There's my awesome reference.
Does he do this with you too, Kevin?
Yeah.
He like you're in the same room as him, but like he'll like hunch over the monitor. So
no, I'm more like every 5 minutes. Hey, Kevin, come here. Hey, Kevin, come here.
You know those like old photography like setups where they would have the whole sheet?
Yeah.
That's how he draws. Yeah. Yeah, and then every now and again he'll invite you in, but like he crops it to a way where you can only see like a thumbnail, and you're like, "That's a good thumb, man. I like it." And he'll be like,
That sounds like Brandon.
"Yeah, I was gonna say, I
No,
think
I
he's
let
like
you
the
see
next Steve
everything.
Jobs. He's gonna, you know, have all his projects close to the chest."
I have so much unfinished work that I just God, I need. I think once I finish this, I'll be able to like knock out those other two pieces really, really quick. Pretty
You
excited
know,
about it.
what's interesting. Something that I noticed about like progressing uh, as an artist and like having those Eureka pieces, like those stepping stones to your next, your next level or whatever. Like it's interesting because you feel really slow starting out,
Hmm.
and I think when you're trying to hit the quality that you want, you have to be that slow. Like you have to take the time and you have to sit back and really analyze what it is you're doing. You can't sort of just lay paint down and then hope something good is going to come out of that. Um, but eh, when you do that, you have a lot of unfinished work. Like just you inherently don't finish pieces because it's either not what you want or it doesn't look the way you intended it to look or the quality is just not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But when you start getting those skills and you start getting the know-how and the expertise, like when you revisit those old ideas, that's really fun because then you can start to knock them out and you'll be able to bring a new like fresh design sensibility to it that you didn't really have before.
Yeah.
So old ideas like that kernel of inspiration that it once was, like it can really become like this it can be your next Eureka piece.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Oh man, that seems perfect. That's the funny thing about like sequential stuff is you are like almost in the opposite mind frame because like once you finish, you should never go back. You should always, nope, whatever you learned in that page, apply it to the next page because you have 24 more pages to do.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
so I really want to do that. Find an old thing and like redraw it or like try and do something new with it. That'd be really good.
I don't know, Dylan, if you've seen the other two pieces that I was started and haven't gotten the chance to,
Is this
work on.
this one of them? I
Yeah,
remember
this is one of them.
yeah, I remember seeing this one a while ago.
Yeah,
Um,
this was the final, so about a month ago is when this was done.
okay, okay.
And it just had to have the line work done. And then there's this one, which is just going to be like this big airspace thing on a skyscraper. So I'm going to have like,
Awesome. Awesome. This one I've never seen. When did you say you started doing this one?
I did both of these at the same time.
Okay, okay.
And they're both done using SketchUp. So
Cool. Cool.
and SketchUp is super heavy in my work flow now that I've like learned a lot. And I'm actually starting to learn Moto too.
Hmm.
Sounds like I'm doing a lot because I am. But uh, yeah, I'm excited for Moto.
It's my friend Jason Miller. He's the one that turned me on to Moto. And Moto it's a fun program. It's a fun program. I've been trying to find more excuses to use it in client work.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes it can be hard because a lot of the stuff that I'll get, like it has a pretty heavy fantasy lean. And
Hmm.
so, for instance, if it's like an environment, like a lot of the environment is pretty organic. So that's all stuff that I can
Well,
either
let
paint.
me show you something. You might want to get this tutorial. Painting, learning. Or no, I have it in my downloads. Man, where's that? Um, this. This is a tutorial that I just watched that I got on Gumroad.
That's a fun piece.
Yeah,
Who's
it's
the
done in
artist?
Moto.
Who's the
Um,
artist?
God, honestly, it's bad. He doesn't have his name on any of it.
Or did you
Let
just
me.
create it?
I found it. No, I found it on Renegade Art.
Okay.
So
Okay.
let me go and look really quick so I can give him some notoriety. But yeah, he did that completely. He blocked everything in through Moto, using his textures and stuff, and it was very useful.
It's cool. That's definitely cool. I haven't seen anyone really use Moto in that way. Granted, I need to spend, I think, more time in the 3D world, and kind of bone up on my 3D artists that because most of the 3D people that I think watch are either friends of mine, or it's a piece that'll like scroll by on Facebook, and I might catch a name, here or there. But most of the people that I follow are 2D guys. So any 3D stuff that I've seen, especially if it's Moto based, it's all been hard surface type tutorials. It hasn't been organic. So this is cool. This is different for me.
Yeah, this is Ethan Zana. So.
Oh, this is Ethan Zana?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Look
at
that. Very
pretty
cool.
rad.
Very cool. I've known him to do hard surface stuff. I haven't known him to do in 3D anyway. I haven't known him to do organics in that type of program. That's pretty cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, I think it looks good. But oh gosh, so we just hit the 1 hour mark. If anybody has any questions, I think we'll be on here for another 10 minutes. So what are you working on right now, Dylan? Not necessarily this piece, but like, do you have client work that you can talk about, or anything that you are excited to talk about, or anything like that?
Yeah, look, there's I can't mention too much of the client stuff, but right now I'm working with two primary clients. I work with Frostburn Studios on their Heroes of New Earth game. And then I work for a studio down in Colorado called Incarnate Games. And if you know anything about either of those studios, they're pretty much fantasy-based studios. So I do a lot of environment stuff for Frostburn, and therefore I do a lot of fantasy environment illustration for the Heroes project.
Rad. Cool. I think I see myself as much more sci-fi than fantasy.
You know what's interesting, and Kevin, I'm curious about you too, because I've only been like as sort of a relation to Brandon, like I haven't been aware of your stuff until recently, and so I'm curious. So I'm curious, like where your interests fall in the genre category, because I think a lot of what I've seen has been very like modern, sort of contemporary styled stuff, and I'm curious like how it is you mesh with Brandon, who has a pretty like heavy sci-fi lean on his work.
Well, I guess I was told the other day by one of my coworkers. I work at a print shop, and he was like, "Your stuff looks like an anime," and I was like, "Thank you." People always word it that way. It's always like, I hope you mean that as a compliment. Yeah, I mean, like, my whole journey as artist definitely starts with like cartoons and anime, and that's, I think, what when I was a little kid really wanted to do, and then like watching the X-Men cartoons and Spider-Man and Batman the Animated Series. That definitely then, I read comic books and stuff like that, but I never really got into comic books except through Saturday morning cartoons,
Okay. Okay.
So, but right now, I guess a lot of the people are people like Mobius and I think who else? It's like people that don't do Western or sci-fi or superheroes, but they have like a lot of different dabblings, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Does that make sense?
It does. It totally does.
Cute.
I asked because like I actually, my friend Grant and I were talking about this the other day. Like when I started sort of working, once I got out of school, like I went right into, it was a fantasy card company. Like
Yeah.
that's, I mean, the majority of what they did was fantasy card games. And I wasn't a huge like fantasy, like I wasn't a huge fan of fantasy. Like fantasy wasn't really on my radar. Like my biggest influences, I think, growing up, were Blade and The Matrix and Pitch Black and Riddick. Like the sci-fi contemporary horror genre.
Yeah.
Dig that.
Yeah. So like
forever.
yeah. So like fantasy, I didn't know much about it, and after I like ended up drawing and painting like my 60th character in chainmail and leather, like I started to learn like I kind of do the fantasy stuff. I'm kind of a fantasy guy now.
That's
Like
awesome.
it was never anything I intentionally wanted to have happen, but I think I'm past the stage now where I tell people like, yeah, I'm not a fantasy artist. I just do that for my work, but I'm not a fantasy artist. Like I can't say that anymore because
Yeah.
a large portion of my portfolio is now fantasy.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I hear you on that. Like, I never really. It wasn't up until, I mean, I thought I was going to do like superhero comics and stuff like that, but I have yet to actually do any kind of cape stuff. So
I went to college so that I can draw capes.
Wow, how'd you find that recording from 2006? Man. Holy shit!
Oh my god, I just messing with you.
Man, I was pretty young back then, guys.
That's okay. I'm going to college so that I can make video games.
Oh boy. I like this Brandon's voice. Do Pacino.
What?
Never mind, we're good.
Al Pacino?
Nope.
I don't know who Pacino is. This is sad.
It was Al Pacino. You're correct.
Oh,
Literally,
okay.
all you had to do was go, hooah! That's all you had to do. Yeah,
But
no,
yeah.
I like sci-fi.
Yeah, I actually just added somebody from Bosky Productions on Facebook. I couldn't find their email. I kind of felt bad by adding them on Facebook, but I legitimately couldn't find their email.
Who's Bosky?
Bosky is Cliff Blazinski's studio. He used to be the AD for Gears of War, and easily one of my favorite art styles, and I like Bosky and what they're doing. So I added this guy. I don't really want to name drop. I don't know him as well or that well, but I am going to. He told me that I can send him some of my pieces, and I really want to get his feedback and see if he thinks that I have what it got to maybe get an internship. I really want to apply there for an internship, but I don't want to apply there and look dumb, which people have told me is dumb in itself. That they're not. All they can do is give me feedback. So I just want to hear what he has to say before I do apply though. So
Making moves.
That's
That's
cool.
important.
well they live right near us. They live in Raleigh.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah, Raleigh, North Carolina. It's about I think like 7 or 6 hours away.
No, Epic. Is Epic in Raleigh?
Really?
No, Epic Studios is now I believe in Vancouver.
Oh, they might have had. Yeah, you're right. I think they might have had a. Because I know they had like a sister studio that was doing outsource work for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's where their new headquarters is. Because once Cliff left, I wasn't sure how long they were interested. I didn't realize that they were maybe not in the area anymore.
Yeah, I believe that they're in Vancouver and it's called the Coalition Studio now. So I don't know.
Gotcha.
But I really do like that horror sci-fi gig.
That Dead Space.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
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 Alien?
I can't wait. But we didn't get any new questions, so if you guys have any closing remarks, now is the time.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I apologize again that I was late. I hope I
Oh
didn't
no, it was like
derail
5 minutes.
anything.
No problem, dude.
Cool. Well, it was fun talking with you. It was fun painting with you
Yeah, of
fellas.
course.
Yeah, I kind of had an off day today. I won't lie.
I actually just upgraded to CC15, and my color picker is being so slow. Like I don't know why it's being slow, so I just didn't paint. It was aggravating me. So yeah, it's weird. Here, I'll show you. I don't know if anybody else has this problem. If you guys do have this problem, just let me know. So I'm painting, and
Is that only when you're in the Hangout?
it might be. I don't know. I just opened it, so
Yeah. I might check that once you're off the Hangout and see if you still get the lag.
it's different. But yeah, well, thank you everybody for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the talk, and if you guys have any questions for next week, if you have any recommendations for next week, just let me know at zimmeart.com, and everybody's links will be in the description, including Dylan's. So thank you guys.
Thanks for having me, guys. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.